Recording. Hello, everyone. It is the Q&A that we are recording for February 7th. We are all about asking questions, and we lost somebody in the process as they went to go answer, I'm sure, and they pushed themselves right out of the group. I've done that before. What do you see on the screen, everyone? We are talking about the value of asking questions, which is one of our values. And each of you have your own values. And I'm curious, anybody brave enough to see what they see? Stephen, you're muted, or Steve, Rep, you are muted. You want to unmute, please?
Two people that are on different layers.
I love it. Different layers. He's speaking our language. The living unlayered concept is the ability to remove layers. And so Steve is one of our fans and advocates, and one of the gifts we get to be a great advocate relationship with. And he is aware that everybody has different layers. Who else wants to comment on it?
I would like to withdraw my answer in the chat, which was 9.
I love it. You want to withdraw the answer.
I see a 9 too, Briggs, so don't be so scared.
Thank you, Sam.
Awesome.
Thanks,
So the fun part about it is, and Haley's bringing up.
Sorry, I'm trying to go back. There we go.
She's getting ahead of our presentation.
All right.
Deborah, what's your commentary?
I just see two perspectives, two people with different perspectives.
Two people with different perspectives. I love the perspectives. Anyone else? Sam took the 9. Anything you want to add to that? Nope. Sam's like, I'm good there. Richard, any chime in?
Somebody's upside down.
I love it. That's a perspective. And Stephen, any commentary? Is it you attempted to comment beforehand?
No, I just see two people looking at the same thing and getting something different out of it. We run into that a lot.
Isn't that the truth? And so so one of the things that I want to comment on, this is a beginning slide that I use every time I teach diversity, equity, and inclusion, or any type of that aspect, because we want to start having the conversation about what Deborah said is perspectives. And Steve, great observation in the regards to the awareness that everybody has a different awareness of layers and perceptions. So Haley's going to bring up the next slide, which is something that we got to discover very early on working together. So this fun little, beautiful little squirrel she sent me. What do you see?
Onion and a pumpkin.
Right? I saw the pumpkin. She actually bought the onion by itself, sewed it to the squirrel, because we have this fun joke about the squirrel. And she sewed the onion to the thing, but I saw the pumpkin. Do you think we had some clarity of perception right early on? That we both see things from a 6 or a 9, or as Richard would say, one of us was upside down, right? And this was a beautiful thing that she mailed out to me. It was beautiful because she was being very sweet and fun, and yet also making a key point that, as I work through my onion, I might figure out why I'm a squirrel all the doggone time. But that's another story. Those of you that have gotten to know me pretty well know that there is always perceptions and there are always opportunities. And so one of the things that Brig and I have talked about at Haley is the awareness that not everything in our coaching opportunity is black and white. And the gift of what we get to have an opportunity to do. And Brig, anything you want to comment of what you see so far before we dive into the next part?
I don't see a 9.
You don't see a 9 here, right? So when I ask you, how do you determine what the right question is? How do you determine? And Deborah's like, I don't know. That's a tough.
Well, I guess you'd ask the question from your perspective, and if you get a blank stare back, you know you've got the wrong perspective. You need to switch gears.
So interesting enough, when I thanked Haley for it, I said, I really enjoyed the pumpkin. She's like, how'd you see a pumpkin? Right? Now, that is a silly little example, yet a very sweet example, because Haley and I often have different perspectives. Often, because we are uniquely different people that know how to complement each other or getting better and better at complementing each other every day. Because we're learning what the right questions are from each other's perspective. How do I see, so that I love the next visuals that she's created for us, is that I don't make assumptions without asking the question. Because then we create this beautiful other visual everybody else has heard of. So
Indeed.
go back to the 6 and the 9 for a second, please.
Sure.
Thank you. The opportunity, as the computer
sorry.
decides to cooperate with us. Now, we purposely left some balloon people, or I forget what these are actually called in the visual world, graphics, is perception is an opportunity. And depending on what you put on those visuals, when I remind people how to ask the right questions, is clarifying, learning how to step in another person's world. Learning how to, if Brig says, I see a 9, and Sam says, I see a 9, say, Brig, what made you see the 9 first? You're like, am I supposed to answer that?
No, was that literally a question?
That literally was a question. Brig, what made you see the 9 first?
It was, I looked at the right side of the page first.
Are you right-handed?
I am.
Interesting. Any left-handers in the room? Deborah, what number did you see?
I never look at just one side or the other. I mean, I might do that, but I'm going to look at the big picture before I make any thoughts or decisions. So even though my face would have gone towards the 6 first, I made no assumption about what the page meant until reading through everything.
So you took the time, if I'm hearing you correctly, in most situations, you will take the time to observe every detail on the page before jumping to an option.
I try to.
I love that honest answer. Thank you. I do my best not to make an observation or commitment or assessment or assumption before I've got all the information. That's a whole lot said there.
Well, I'm an underwriter at heart, so we're taught to look at everything before we assess risk.
And there's a couple of natural attorneys in the room, so they also have that same perspective at times, right? So Richard, what's resonating with you before we open it up to open questions?
Well, actually, I didn't see the number on its side at all.
Interesting. What did you see?
I saw the graphics that were solid gray and had the white numbers and the two people, but I didn't see the other thing until I went back and looked again, and that's interesting.
Well, and the joy of having shared the visuals like similar to this in other communities is there's also another visual that's possible to see that I didn't see until somebody else pointed it out to me. And when you look at the 6 and the 9, do you see a variety of different colors on there? In other words, it's not one set color. Is it possible that there can be a merging of perceptions?
And the connector between them and the person is different on each one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I have always loved this visual, and it's a great conversation starter because perceptions can be landmines if you're not looking to build the relationship. Yeah, what we teach about building relationships and learning how to ask the right questions is learning how to meet the other person where they are and learn how to validate them in a place that will cause them to truly want to engage with you before you ask to gain agreement. Or even ask for them to have a new moment of decision. If you notice here, I've not told you what I want you to see.
Does anybody else see gender in the two figures?
I didn't, but I could see that now.
And how do you see gender in them?
Well, I'd be interested what Richard thinks.
If
you're on the same page.
Right?
I mean, actually, I see the figure on the left is male and the figure on the right is female.
Yeah.
And the one on the right, honestly, mostly because of the hips.
Yes. Hand on hip, open stance as well.
Interesting. Do you see how many decisions got made from that visual? Brig.
You know, at the risk of angering somebody, you know, I kind of tongue in cheek would have said the person on the right is the guy because he knows the answer, and the woman on the left is questioning what the answer is. Not saying that the guy's right, but
The perception there. Deborah, you're shaking your head.
I just find it very amusing. And in my life, just saying, I'm the one who's always right.
Look, I realize I'm new here, but I think that we all probably share that trait. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here.
The trait of knowing when we're right. Is that what you're saying?
Or always being right.
Oh, got it. So you decided that this community always has some Stephen, you've got so much to say there, I could tell.
But that's because we're all leaders. We wouldn't be here if we weren't leaders and trying to improve, right?
We are always committed to improving, and this is the right room to do that in. Absolutely. Love that. And so as I get ready to open it up for questions, and remember that we can teach you a multitude of tools, and Haley's got a wonderful article if we're ready, if you want any more details on that. Yet the gift of what we are working to impress in these first 5 to 10 minutes as you prepare whatever questions you want to ask, and we open up to allow the group to have some input in that, is that there's always perspective. And the right questions are, how do you allow the other person to communicate their perspective so that you can confirm? You don't have to agree, you get to validate by making sure they're heard. Then you get the opportunity to ask questions to cause connection, and then determine if there's an opportunity to gain agreement in whatever it is, even if it's just to have another conversation. Does that make sense? Is everybody following why we have this value of asking questions? And how important this value is in everyone's world. So, I love the statement. You'll discover more than you think. So what are your thoughts? Is there any other slides that I missed, Miss Haley?
Nope, that's all.
Perfect. It is open forum now. You may stay on the current subject. You may go into another subject. You are allowed to ask whatever question you like. Or I put you on the spot. You decide.
I'll just make a comment. I think it's interesting. Everybody's perspective is based on your experiences in your past, and your surroundings and everything else. And I mean, I see now that the main idea here was to show that people come to the table with different ideas of what they're perceiving, and it's brought to evidence just because I thought this was about layering. I thought this was about the layers and discovering layers and the different, two people coming to the table at different, from different perspectives from layers, but not just as simple as, hey, I think it's a 6 and I think it's a 9. I think the one on the left is a female. I think the one on the right is female. I mean, it's interesting. And it makes your point even more clearly.
Steve, what a wonderful observation. And yes, the further along you are comfortable in uncovering questions, the more you learn about the layers to the questions. So I love that you're pinpointing that. Yet what you're also discovering is everybody's in a different place in their own journey. And so understanding what they're hearing, what they're seeing, how they're connecting, and what's going to matter to them. What a beautiful observation. Thank you for sharing that. And the whole value of you never know what we're going to communicate about in this room, which we're very thankful for everyone's presence. Who's next? I know you're dying to, Sam.
Well, I think I need to, speak about what happened last week a little bit. And I want to start by saying that when I say things on these Zoom calls, I know that they're recorded and they're broadcast to the world. So I'm okay with, if I say it on here, I realize that I'm okay with the being broadcast to the world. And the other thing is that I take full responsibility for what happens in my life. I don't know if anybody knows what I'm talking about. I take full responsibility for what happens in my life, good or bad. And when I contacted April, was it last August or whatever? I wanted her to help me for business coaching and setting up this new business. And at the time I was literally starting from scratch, starting from zero. And in the back of my mind, I knew that, hey, I needed to get revenue. I needed to get revenue with this new business. And as we go along building it, we're working on things. I'm working on my other business at the same time. And so I'm able to kind of pretend that I don't actually need to bring in money for that second business just yet. And along in our coaching, we had talked about, hey, we need to have the CFO of my business, myself, show up every week and have a discussion about where we are with the business. And that brought forth kind of the frustration that I look around and I'm still at zero with the second business. I have clients, everything like that. I just don't have actually cash in hand yet. And I think that frustration reflected in a way that it was just frustration about myself, frustration with where I was, frustration with where I thought I should be, but I wasn't. And I don't know, is that?
One, and it's interesting, Sam, that a couple of things I want to celebrate the way you're going about presenting. So, and I want everybody to hear that I'm reaffirming everything that Sam's saying, and I'm going to take them into the next question. So every time that we do these things, and Sam knows this, is those of you who've been around me a while, you know what's happening next, right? Yet the gift of what Sam is saying is last week we had a very intense conversation about a question that I've been asking, which is the concept of living unlayered. And in the world we live in One Light Ahead, we offer a multitude of styles of coaching. And sometimes that is directly directed to CFO. Sometimes that is in mindset. Sometimes that is in all different aspects, depending on where the client's at. And last week, Sam and many of us have had over this year of having some very tough conversations about where is the bottom line? Where is the CFO showing up? I can say it 15 different ways. Which question is going to resonate the deepest? And what happened last week is one got under Sam's skin and he was very vocal about it. And it was wonderful. That's what this audience is about. In the same aspect, Sam was a little under the weather and a little bit challenged in a couple of different perspectives. And so I asked him to restate it today because I chose to, and I openly told him I chose to delete last week's because I wanted to give him the ability to restate it in a way that it was supportive. And now, and most of the time I will openly promote these. And so Sam's basically giving me permission. Anytime I say anything, you're allowed to publicize it. and I love that. So I want to first clarify that. The second thing I want to clarify is, Sam, you were running two businesses. You are still running two businesses. And the gift of where you're moving into, and I want you to share, if you're open, what happened from that conversation. What did that conversation?
Well, specifically, it wasn't so much about, specifically, it was putting together a P&L report and looking at the report every week to show me where I was with the business. And I was at zero. I mean, I had done a lot of the groundwork, a lot of helping with the clients, but really what I consider to be the ultimate purpose of business is to make money. And I was at zero on that P&L. And I didn't like that. I didn't like that, where I was. And I went out to the clients that I helped and I said, hey, I helped you, give me some cash essentially. And I ended up making $5,000 from going back to the clients that I was helping with that. So, April's question or prodding really helped with that specific week and kind of jump-started the momentum. So.
Thank you, Sam. And so the 6 and 9 perspective for this week of what I'm hearing you say is there's a perspectives on both ends. And remember, as a coach, my opportunity is to determine what you'll hear when you'll hear it, and how to best resonate with you to force you to the next level without causing you to disappear completely. Richard, you have no issue with that one, right?
Oh, no, none whatsoever.
The opportunity is that all of us, and now I get to, people that I've been coaching for a while, they give me permission to be a little bit more vocal with them. And so the gift moving forward is learning how we, and Stephen brought in that week to say, there's some pre-qualification questions we need to start asking early on. And it was an improvement to us as well. So we wanted to celebrate the opportunity that we are growing as a community, because there's a difference of having you record certain things, but then you run a business and a P&L is a requirement. So Stephen, you have a comment.
Well, yeah, an observation, and that Sam, your willingness and ability to speak out the way you did just is an example of how comfortable and safe this environment is. And I want to, let you know that, we should all feel that comfortable. And I know April's got thick enough skin to take it and hand it back in a box with a bow if she needs to. So I think it's great. It just shows the group, as fluid as the group is, there's still a lot of continuity, and people feel comfortable here. So that's a great thing. Number two, yeah, I probably need to put together a P&L too. Walking into the middle of February, Sam, I'm still at zero. I've got a lot of stuff happening, but none of it's happened. And so frustration, yeah, it's like being 3/4 of the way through your next step and not knowing if there's something there at going to meet your foot when your foot hits the ground, maybe, but taking the step anyway. So just an observation. And I've always, I think the whole question in sales, if you're not asking questions, you're spending the money that you don't have. If you're just talking, you're throwing money out your mouth. So I found that asking questions is the only way really to get the client to talk and to tell you what they really want. And eventually they do.
And Stephen, will you share how much your business has improved over the seasons and the journey we get to go through in the course correction?
Which season?
Right. So by the way, if you've never heard this, NASA is only on target 3% of the time.
Right. So I'm better than NASA. Things have gotten a lot better. I went from not having any income or very little and struggling. Last year, I think at the end of the year, I'd sold 8 million. My goal was 15, but I reached 8. This year, my goal is 25, and I've got, nearly 1 million on the books right now. So I'm I've got to step it up. I've worked the numbers backward, and an interesting thing about coaching is it's not always, it's always about the bottom line, but looking at the bottom line isn't always the way to get the bottom line up. And April has, through the years, helped me to develop those things which allow me to lift the bottom line. Whether it's giving me finger holds or levers or just the strength to do it, it doesn't matter. It's all important, and all the parts and pieces are what makes it possible.
And Stephen, thank you for clarifying. It's not, some people in this room are very literal and they need to shoot for one star at a time. Some are okay to shoot for a moon and land among the stars. And so last year it was the moon landing among the star, right? We still generated an excellent year in some respects, right? And so,
Yeah.
so people are working to recruit you regularly.
Yes. It
Yeah.
would have been even more excellent if I didn't have 2 kids in private college.
Right. My point being is that now this year, we're actually purposely discussing the fact of what it takes to hit the moon.
Right.
And now he's ready to have those conversations about those bottom lines, et cetera, that are things that each person is giving us permission to say, let's not have a conversation unless we're having that. And I love that. So I want to celebrate that with both of you and everyone else listening, because whether we like it or not, and Richard, you know all about the gift of bottom line because you are bottom line lawyers. What a concept. What's resonate with you, sir?
You know, I wasn't going to attend this today. And I was looking at my calendar about what's on the docket for today. And I saw the title, Love What You Do Again. And it reminded me of 2 weeks ago, I guess it was, whenever our last conversation, and you mentioned what I'm putting out in the world and therefore not attracting in the world. And my revenues have been less than my burn rate since the pandemic started. And despite the fact that I've cut my burn rate in half from what it was at that point in time. And so I've obviously incurred a lot of debt in order to keep things moving. And I realized I don't love what I do. I'm just plain tired of it, right? And maybe I want to focus on love the people you do it for, and not so much what I do, and focus more on those relationships and less on the work itself. You know, I've been dealing with April. We've been talking about advocates, champions, whatever we want to call them, and building those relationships. And I'm actually doing some more research on that, April, with a book called Snowball that's pretty interesting about those relationships. Anyway, so that's kind of where I'm at today. My energy level is not what it typically is, honestly. And my enthusiasm is not what it typically is, honestly. But I thought I better drag my ass over here and be part of this conversation.
Thank you for your honesty. Everybody's giving the permission. Is the whole point of being here is what is the one thing I can do today to ask the right question, including to myself?
Mm-hmm.
Great question and great opportunity to see the relationship connection. That was awesome. Questions, thoughts before I pick on somebody again? Greg, you're ready.
No, I was just going to say, I liked the way, Richard, you just described that you may not like what you do, but if you love the people you do it for, that might be, you know, that might be motivation enough, right? And kind of get you through those seasons, right? I love that perspective. You know, your comment earlier about asking questions and are you asking the right questions? That's something that you and I've discussed with respect to my business. And I did something very unusual for me. I spoke to one of my newest clients and said, hey, I got to streamline my process. You just went through this. What would you recommend? And he came up with some nuggets that I think are going to be very, very helpful. But asking, you know, my primary audience for their feedback is not something that ever occurred to me, which in hindsight is just like, well, duh, you know.
What do you do, Brig?
I run a digital marketing agency, similar to what Sam does, but just almost as good.
But and the gift is
unproven so far. Let's see.
Not completely true, Sam. You are making an impact, and Brig and you are going to connect, I'm sure. The opportunity, and Sam, you have already had individuals that you're serving and building. And Brig, you've got a whole lot more journey, if you will. Yeah, you're getting much more detailed in the process, right? And I love the streamline. So Brig, first of all, great job in acknowledging where Richard's at. And you all have done an amazing job of that for each other today. I want to thank you for that. And Richard, one of the things in regards to relationships is And one of the things we started off the call with is that concept of self-leadership and the ownership of, okay, how long will I do this? How long will I invest in relationships, or who do I put in place to do the parts that need to be done? And how do I move into the places? Who do I find to moves me into where I can keep building those relationships and yet allow the parts that I may not be where I shine to be well empowered. That's a conversation that we also have an opportunity around, right? So Brig, congratulations on also being willing to ask your clients and ask the tough questions, because that opens up opportunity.
That's
Deborah,
a
what's
scary
resonating?
question.
Oh, say again, Richard?
So that's scary to do.
It's valuable. It's
Yeah.
ridiculously valuable, because, and this is the whole point of advocates is, so, and Sam did a fabulous job of saying, this is what I hired her for. And this question resonated here. Not that the other questions didn't work, but this question hit me right between the eyes. That's what I heard you say. And that one kicked me. And I like it when my boot hits somebody, joyfully, of course. Yet, in the same aspect, I realize that sometimes not everybody's ready for the boot. And I get to be purposeful and learn how to create that at a level that they're ready for. And yet still ask the tough questions. Deborah, what's resonating with you?
Again, what Richard had said about, maybe the business itself wasn't what he was looking forward to, but needing to find value in the people that he is servicing. So I'm wholeheartedly trying to run my business in that manner, where the meats and, the nuts and bolts of the business itself is just what you do to be able to serve the client. And so for me, the goal is service to, I want to be able to help out single moms and millennials and get them into a house. So for me, it is trying to keep that in front of me, that I want to take care of those people. And so maybe that's what gets me through the meats and bolts part of it.
So Deborah, as being a lender in the joyful marketplace that you're in and serving the clients you want to serve, your opportunities keep stating that message and to yourself and to others, and ask those questions for those individuals. I love that. Is there a question that you have for the group today?
No, I almost didn't come, just because, again, looking at stuff on my calendar, was there going to be value? And I just want to say that there's definitely value, and that I will be sure to come to these appointments every week.
Well, Deborah, Stephen is asking on the chat, which marketplace do you serve?
I'm in Sacramento.
Not far from Stephen, by the way.
Oh, Stephen, where are you at?
I'm in Nevada City.
Oh, okay. Okay. So we're not competing against each other.
Well, I'm not a lender, but I could sure use you if you're a good lender.
Oh, okay. Perfect. Perfect. Absolutely. I have
You
tons
never
of great
know.
programs. Yeah.
So that would be a great opportunity to build another advocate offline, because that's the gift of this community, is that we work to connect each other. And Brig and Sam have already got connected. Sam and Richard have gotten connected. We're working on others. So the opportunity of this space is, one, to make sure that we are adding value. So where you are truly loving what you do again or greater, and then open up questions. So who's brave enough to bring the next question to the room? Wow. And Stephen, you're like, the silence. Now, by the way, is it in the sales world, is silence a valuable tool?
Yeah.
Speaks first, loses. Wow.
Okay, now we're just all playing, what is that?
Chicken.
Thank you. That's it. Now we're all just playing chicken.
We all be chicken.
It's rare for me to go that long being quiet. Haley knows. And yet, right? Yet this is a powerful group. There's a whole lot of wisdom in each and every one of you. And each of you are in different places. And Brig, you were going to make a comment there. You muted yourself.
I did make it.
Oh, you made it because you were playing chicken.
Chicken.
And if you weren't chicken, what question would you be asking?
I already went.
I love it.
Are you gonna play
So
fair
Jim-
here or what?
No, I don't play fair. But Stephen,
So
go ahead.
generally, when you're asking questions for a purpose. So I guess, I mean, we're all in different industries, but we're all trying to, when we're in front of a client, get to the same place. It's like, what can I do for them? Are there any, in your experience, like key questions that are pretty universal?
Yes, there are many. And this Haley was prepared for you because she felt that question coming. But she actually pulled
And,
up.
and I even predicted that you would ask it, Stephen.
She did. She totally did. And Haley, go ahead and comment on that before I add some additional flavor to that.
Yeah. So I personally don't have questions as much as I have principles, I think, that are universally helpful. When sometimes the purpose of the question is just to connect. It's not necessarily about the information. It's not really about the question. Sometimes it's just about something different. But when we're working with a client or with a team member, usually the question is about the information, like you want to learn something. And in that case, obviously you want to avoid asking closed-ended or rhetorical questions. You want to go as far in the direction of an open-ended question as possible, but still be specific, so don't just ask a vague question to keep it open and then the other person is unsure what you want from that question. So like I said, more principles than questions, but something that April is brilliant at is asking open-ended questions that are directed, toward the answer that she wants from you. And what that allows is creativity in perspective. It allows creativity in conversation. So it's not just person A asks the question and person B answers said question, but there's the opportunity to expand and to talk about something that maybe person A didn't think about. Just trying to keep it as open as possible, because when two people are in a room, they are going to have different perspectives. They are going to have different values and things that are bringing to the table. And you don't want to, snuff that out at all. You want to keep that open as much as possible.
And there is a whole article that Miss Haley pulled for you, Stephen, if you'd like her to forward that to you. You
can put it in the chat.
Actually, she'll put it in the chat, even better for everyone. And that was actually, so Haley is beautiful. So you all understand that I when she said that I'm guiding you toward an answer I want, ultimately, the answer that I'm looking for is an answer to be your mirror. It's not about what I want, although I see where she said that. So I want to compliment that. Because
more like the answer that has the information that you want, not like the answer that you want, but you want an answer. Does that make sense?
Yes. Do you see how that perspective happened, by the way? So the gift of what I want, I guess I do say I want awareness. The gift of what we're looking to create for each and every one of you. And Stephen, I love the question is when you are connecting with somebody, you're looking to build opportunities that they know that they were heard. first and foremost, because anyone you're connecting with. And Steve, Mr. Rep, you know this very well in your world. You went through a season of not always being able, or you watch what happens when you don't make sure you validate. Anything you want to share on that? You're muted, sir. He's working on unmuting himself.
All right, sorry, I'm saving that link. Yeah, I think everybody knows what we're talking about there. I don't really have anything to add to it. But I appreciate what you're driving at.
Okay, Brig, that's a moment of chicken. Right. So now, Mr. Rep, what happens for you, if you allow me to put you on the spot again for a minute, because that's probably why it's challenging to be here in these moments, right? Is to know that you're going to be put on the spot every once in a while, because Sam and Stephen are used to it. And is it, so Mr. Rep, is it easier for you to observe or to be on the hot seat?
No, either way.
Yes, awesome. I got permission. Did you see how I got permission? So Mr. Rep, what happens when you get so focused on your agenda, you forget to make sure somebody hears you or you've heard them?
Well, yeah, I mean, you're talking about tunnel vision basically, and when you're not leveraging all the pieces and parts of the systems that you put in place or didn't, then you're not running on all 8 cylinders. I'm a perfect example of that. I'm dealing with that right now. You know, I've spent the last couple of years building business in this marketplace. It's finally taken off, and I'm in the tail end of doing some projects around here that are finally coming to fruition. But I have let go or relaxed on nearly all of the important processes that I put in place to make this successful. And now I'm just struggling to put it all back in place before it all goes off the rails. You know, I mean, it's just ridiculous how easy those good habits are broken for me. It's killing me.
That was such a beautiful answer and so accurate. I'm sure nobody in the room resonates with what you're saying right there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. No. And we all have. And so, as I mentioned, I'm incorporating a tool called the self-leadership, and they use the terminology. So if you've heard of the hierarchy of values, that's the concept. So Robert Hartman is the gentleman that actually used to barbecue with Maslow. And interesting enough, I have the Habit Finder tools, which many of you are very familiar with, and then we're adding in another one called Axiogenics. And the terminology he calls it is a valuegenic mindset. And he basically says there's an A game and a B game. And more often than not, we want to fix our biases. We want to fix those bad habits. Those bad habits are so ingrained, it's ridiculous. And yet we have an opportunity to start learning where our assets are and how we're purposeful about those assets and how we ask those right questions that align with how we are connecting and how we are being in a valuegenic mindset. How are we creating good for each other? And so, Steve, one of the things you just said, it's natural for us to want to do everything all at once, right? I had this habit, I had this habit, I had this habit. It was really good. And the challenge is this habit fell off. This habit fell off. Anyone resonate with that? Just a few?
You get so busy in the minutia that your best practices fall to the wayside because, you know, sink or swim sometimes.
So, Deborah, you deeply resonate with what he's saying.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so the tough question comes in, and this is a very difficult and ridiculously simple question, and I'm going to give you the specifics in our next week's, I'll give you the actual question and quote in next week. It basically, the question is, what can I do at this particular moment that will create the greatest net value? Stephen.
Keep with your purposeful schedule. It's that basic thing that you and I talked about right from the beginning. And that's what we get away from. All of a sudden, we get so enthralled and lulled into this, oh, I've arrived and I'm working on the project, which is this ball of goodness that's far away from the daily routine that we've mastered it, but it becomes that dull, oh my gosh, I got to do this again. But that's what allows this other part to happen. And that's exactly what I did, is I got away from, what am I doing in the morning when I wake up? What time am I getting to work? What's the first thing I do when I get in the office? You lose that purposeful schedule, and all of a sudden, all the stuff that was feeding that success now is a big void. And I'm just finishing up a 2-month void because I relaxed for a couple months.
Well, and Stephen, and I'm sure everyone in this room has justifications for those voids, right?
We can justify it all day and night, but the bottom line is the bottom line.
Right?
Yeah.
We keep coming back to that bottom line conversation. Yet, Steve, Mr. Rep, the gift of what I'm hearing you say is there's some opportunities to determine which one's the highest priority first.
Well, I mean, that's part of the process, and that's part of the tools that, we've learned over the years, and, track it all back from a motivating statement back to your, the tools that we've all talked about, strive for 5 and 4,
145.
145. Thank you. Until you get to the point where your motivation focuses you to do the stuff that Stephen's talking about. Look at your schedule in the morning and the evening. That's a big one that's fallen away for me. It's probably one of the biggest tools that help refocus, but it's just crazy for me. I know all these pieces and parts, and I understand all these processes, but I'm just fantastic at walking away from them. So I just don't know how to fix myself. I keep coming back to the same place. Hey, Richard.
Yes, Richard.
Yeah. I don't know if it's this way for you, Steve, but for me, one of the challenges to that is forgiving myself for getting off the rails and recommitting to doing what I need to do. Given my Catholic background, it's all about you're guilty, and you did it wrong and all that sort of stuff. And so you're a bad person, as opposed to, no, that's what happened. Now move forward.
I don't really have that issue, at least not to my forefront knowledge, if you would. I don't, it's not that I'm not beating myself up about it. I'm amazed at myself that I fall away from it so easily, but I don't know what it is, honestly.
So Steve, I'm going to interrupt for a minute. I'm going to ask Brig if I can put him on the spot.
Of course.
Thank you for permission. Curious, you sent me an email after that conversation of that question. Do you remember what you said?
Yeah, I was pumped up.
And tell me, would you share with our community what happened that caused that?
What happened that caused me to be pumped up? Well, it was 2 very big things. One was the what, and then it was the surrounding the what. So the what was I got excellent feedback that helped me to kind of focus where I'm going to put my attention in the pre-qualification process, because I'm spending way too much prep time with people that aren't really in a position to take advantage of what we do. So I've got to figure out how do I, triage that better. Okay. Because like any startup business at the beginning, you talk to everybody, right? You can't afford to, oh, no, I can't help you. You talk to everybody. Well, I'm now at the point where I don't have to talk to everybody, but I still do. Okay. That was the what. The bigger thing around it was just the whole experience of asking a client for their feedback and then listening to what they had to say and then going, well, shit, that's a great idea.
What a concept, right? And so, Brig, what I there's two things that I was hoping for you to share in that. One is that it gave you joy to get feedback, and that a request that you were given actually had added value. So that was one exciting thing. So Stephen Mr. DeSena always gives me fun when he sends me an email, says Coach April was right. Thank you for that. He said, and he let me share about that last week. But the gift is, and I suppose there is a whole group of us that enjoy being right. With that, there is, at the end of the day, what you also said, Brig, is that there was some justifications that you put in place that you felt you had to talk to everybody. You felt that those things had to happen. And in all reality, you could narrow in the process. You could decide how I'm going to filter this in. So Mr. DeSena was saying, I don't know how long we've been working on that purposeful schedule, sir. Yet, is that all? That the gift of what we're working to give everyone is the ability, and Richard, what a beautiful thing that you were helping discover, that is, there's no value in beating up on ourselves for what happened. We don't get to go change the past. What we get to do is say, what are we going to do today that's going to create the greatest value?
Okay.
And what are we going to be purposeful in regards to saying that it's okay to engage our clients. It's okay to ask the right questions to ourselves first. And then we can connect with our clients to ask the right questions. And Brig, you asked both. You asked yourself and your other clients. So Richard, I'm curious as we wrap up today, and I'll unmute Mr. Stephen as there you go. Is there any thoughts or questions that you're going to take into as you chose to be present here? And we thank each and every one of you for being present. This is an opportunity for open Q&A. Is there any other thought or question as we walk out and give you back to your day?
For me, I just appreciate everybody's input. You know, part of what I'm doing is kind of reconnecting. I've been rogue for a while here, but I know I need to correct this revolving door I've got going behavior wise. And I have a group of people here that are a fantastic resource that I'm hoping to be able to tap. So greatly appreciate your input.
And you give and get. So great job. Thank you for being present and committing to the time. Anyone else? Richard, did you want to comment on it?
Yeah, two things. One, just thank you all for allowing me to drag myself out of my head. It's too easy to get caught up in there. And then two, in terms of the questions, to me, the purpose of the question is to find out if the person you're speaking with, do they see the 6 or do they see the 9? Because if I know the answer to that, then I know how to effectively communicate in a way that they'll get it.
That's a whole nother conversation. Love it.
Yeah.
Excellent. Who else? Any other thoughts or questions? Miss Haley.
I think a kind of an underlying theme that I didn't expect to see today, but I did, is that we all operate our best when we are operating through our values. And when we start there, we start with why we're doing what we're doing. We start with what we love, and we start with who we love. Start there. And that sounds like that's where we all operate at our best. And then from there, one of our values just happens to be asking questions. So it's a perfect fit, but everyone's values look different. But nonetheless, when all of us can say, you know what, I'm operating right now, starting at the point of operating from my value and letting that bleed out, I think all of us in one way or another said that that's where we're at our best. So I just wanted to kind of bring that all together. Yeah.
Great job. Enjoy a beautiful afternoon. Stephen, I saw your hand go up. Did you have any other thought? You good? Okay. Have a wonderful, we'll look forward to seeing all of you back next week and any time in between. Have an amazing week. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.